The alarm bells rang across Sentinel-7, cutting through the morning calm like a knife. Captain Jake Morrison dropped his coffee cup and ran to the main control room. His boots made loud sounds on the metal floor as he moved through the narrow hallways of the orbital station. "What do we have?" Jake asked as he reached the control center. The room was full of blinking lights and screens showing space around Earth. Lieutenant Sam Carter looked up from his station. His face was pale, and his hands shook as he pointed at the main screen. "Sir, we have contacts coming out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Lots of them." Jake stared at the screen. Hundreds of red dots appeared where empty space had been just moments before. Each dot represented a ship, and they were all moving toward Earth. The computer counted them as they appeared. 200, 300, 400 ships. "How big are they?" Jake asked, his mouth dry. "The largest ones are over 2 miles long, sir. The smallest are still bigger than our biggest cruisers." Jake felt his heart sink. He had been in the Earth Defense Force for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The alien fleet was massive, more ships than Earth had ever built in all of human history. "Send word to Admiral Brooks on the Defiant," Jake ordered. "Tell her we have a situation." On the bridge of the UES Defiant, Admiral Lisa Brooks received the message while reviewing supply reports. She was a tough woman who had worked her way up through the ranks, but even she felt fear when she saw the alien fleet on her screens. "How long until they reach Earth?" she asked her navigation officer. "At their current speed, about 6 hours, ma'am." Lisa looked at the tactical display showing Earth's defenses. 12 cruisers, 36 patrol boats, and 42 orbital defense stations. It looked pitiful compared to the alien armada heading their way. "Signal all ships," she said. "Battle stations. Prepare for contact with hostile forces." The crew of the Defiant moved quickly to their positions. They had trained for this day, but nobody really thought it would come. Earth had been searching for alien life for centuries, but finding it this way was terrifying. Far above Earth's surface, the alien fleet continued its approach. The ships were beautiful in a deadly way, with smooth curves and shining metal that caught the light from distant stars. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of fish swimming through the dark ocean of space. On the lead ship, Admiral Kethfer stood on his command bridge and looked at the small blue planet ahead. He was tall and thin, with skin that looked like crystal and changed colors as he thought. Right now, his skin showed the purple color of confidence. "What do our scouts tell us about this world?" he asked his intelligence officer. "The humans are primitive, Admiral. They have basic fusion drives and simple weapons. Their largest ships are less than half a mile long. They have not even left their own solar system." Kethfer's skin shifted to a pleased green color. "How many ships do they have?" "Less than 50 combat vessels, Admiral. All of them are old and use outdated technology. They will not be able to stop us." The Zephyrian Admiral smiled, showing teeth that sparkled like diamonds. This would be easy, just like all the other worlds they had conquered. 17 planets had fallen to their fleet, and Earth would be number 18. "Send the surrender message," Kethfer ordered. "Give them 1 hour to respond." Back on Earth, people went about their daily lives, not knowing that death was coming from the stars. In New York, office workers hurried to their jobs. In London, children played in parks. In Tokyo, scientists worked in their labs. None of them knew that alien ships were racing toward their world, but in secret government buildings around the planet, alarms were ringing. In a deep bunker under Washington, D.C., Colonel Amy Rodriguez received a coded message that made her blood. "Term cold, condition red," she said into her communicator. "Begin Protocol 7 immediately." Similar messages went out to hidden facilities in Russia, China, Britain, and 20 other countries. Deep underground, in places that did not appear on any public maps, old machines began to wake up. Lights flickered on in rooms that had been dark for decades. On Sentinel-7, Jake Morrison watched the main screen as a new signal appeared. The alien fleet was sending a message to Earth. "Put it on speakers," Jake ordered. A voice filled the control room, speaking in perfect English, but with a strange musical quality. "People of Earth, I am Admiral Kethvor of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world has been chosen to join our great civilization. You have 1 hour to surrender completely. If you refuse, we will destroy your cities and take your planet by force. This is your only warning." The message ended, leaving the control room in silence. Jake looked around at his crew. They were all young men and women who had joined the Defense Force to protect Earth. Now they faced an enemy that could crush them without effort. "Sir," Lieutenant Carter said quietly, "what do we do?" Jake thought about his wife and daughter. Back on Earth, he thought about all the people who were counting on him and the other defenders to keep them safe. The alien fleet was huge and powerful, but he would not give up without a fight. "We do our job," Jake said firmly. "We protect Earth." On the planet below, emergency meetings began in government buildings around the world. The President of the United States, the Prime Minister of Britain, the leaders of every major nation received the same terrible news. Earth was about to be invaded by aliens with technology far beyond human capabilities. Dr. Marcus Webb, head of the xenobiology department at Harvard University, was pulled from his classroom and rushed to a secret government facility. As his helicopter flew over the city, he could see people on the streets looking up at the sky. Somehow, word was starting to spread that something was wrong. "Dr. Webb," said the general who met him at the facility, "we need you to analyze the alien communication. We need to know what we're dealing with." Marcus studied the message that had been sent from the alien fleet. The language was complex, but the meaning was clear. These aliens had done this before. They were experienced conquerors who expected easy victory. "They're confident," Marcus told the general. "Maybe too confident. They think we're helpless. Aren't we?" The general asked. Marcus looked at the data again. Something bothered him about the aliens' approach. They were being very casual for an invasion force. It was almost like they were not taking Earth seriously as a threat. "Maybe," Marcus said slowly. "Or maybe that's what someone wants them to think." High above Earth, the alien fleet continued its approach. Admiral Kethvor watched the human orbital stations and laughed. The tiny weapons on those stations could not even scratch the paint on his ships. This would be over quickly. But deep in the ocean, in hidden bases that no satellite had ever photographed, ancient systems were coming online. Massive doors that had been sealed for generations began to open. And in the dark spaces between Earth and Mars, something stirred in the void, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The hour of surrender was almost over, and Earth seemed defenseless against the approaching alien armada. But appearances could be deceiving, and humanity had been preparing for this day longer than anyone imagined. Dr. Marcus Webb sat in the sterile white conference room deep beneath the Pentagon. Around the table were the most important people in the world, but they all looked scared. The president sat at the head of the table, his face gray with worry. Military leaders studied reports that showed how hopeless their situation was. "Dr. Webb," the president said, "you're our expert on alien life. What can you tell us about these Zephyrians?" Marcus looked at the translation of the alien message on his tablet. He had spent his whole career wondering what first contact with aliens would be like. He had never imagined it would be like this. "They're clearly advanced, sir. Their ships use technology we don't understand. But there's something interesting about their message. They're very confident, almost arrogant. They expect us to surrender without a fight." General Harrison, The head of the Joint Chiefs slammed his hand on the table. Of course they're confident. Look at their fleet. We have 50 ships. They have hundreds. Our biggest weapon is a nuclear missile, and their smallest ship probably has shields that could stop a dozen of them. But why give us an hour to surrender? Marcus asked. If they're so powerful, why not just attack? The room fell silent. Nobody had thought about that question. Secretary of State Karen Murphy spoke up. Maybe they don't want to damage the planet. If they're conquering worlds, they want them intact. Marcus nodded. That makes sense. But I think there's more to it. They've done this before. 17 other worlds, according to their message. They have a system. They show up, demand surrender, and the planet gives up without a fight. What choice do those planets have? The president asked. None, Marcus said, just like us. But even as he said it, Marcus noticed something strange. Some of the military officers in the room didn't look as worried as they should. Colonel Amy Rodriguez sat quietly in the corner, but she kept checking her watch. General Peterson from the Air Force looked almost calm. The president stood up. We need to try to talk. To them. Dr. Webb, I want you to lead a diplomatic mission. See if we can negotiate. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Sir, I'm not a diplomat. I study alien biology. You're the closest thing we have to an expert on aliens, the president said. Besides, they might be more willing to talk to a scientist than a politician. 20 minutes later, Marcus found himself on a shuttle heading up to the orbital station Gateway 1. The pilot was nervous, his hands shaking on the controls. Through the small window, Marcus could see the alien fleet in the distance, hundreds of ships arranged in perfect formations. Gateway 1 was Earth's biggest orbital station, built for trade and diplomacy. Today it would host humanity's first meeting with aliens. Marcus tried to calm his nerves as the shuttle docked with the station. Commander Helen Price met him at the airlock. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes. Dr. Webb, welcome to Gateway 1. The aliens are sending a shuttle. It should arrive in 10 minutes. Marcus nodded and followed her to the main conference room. The room had a large window that showed the alien fleet clearly. The ships were beautiful, but frightening, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to glow with their own light. Commander Price, Marcus said, what do you think our chances are? Helen looked out at the alien ships. Honestly, Doctor? Not good, but we have to try. The alien shuttle arrived exactly on time. It was small but elegant, shaped like a teardrop, made of silver metal. It docked with Gateway 1 without making a sound. Marcus waited in the conference room as the aliens came aboard the station. His heart pounded as the doors opened and 3 figures entered. The Zephyrians were unlike anything Marcus had ever imagined. They were tall, about 7 feet, with long, thin bodies. Their skin looked like crystal that changed colors as they moved. The leader had skin that shifted from blue to purple to green. I am Commander Velthara, the alien said in perfect English. Her voice was musical, like singing. I speak for Admiral Kethfor and the Zephyrian Empire. Marcus stood up, trying to appear confident. I'm Dr. Marcus Webb. I represent the people of Earth. Velthara looked at him with large eyes that seemed to glow. You are here to surrender your world? I'm here to talk, Marcus said. Maybe we can find a peaceful solution. The alien commander's skin turned a bright red color. Marcus guessed. That meant amusement, or maybe contempt. Dr. Webb, your people are children playing with simple tools. We have traveled between the stars for thousands of your years. We have conquered 17 worlds. All of them thought they could find a peaceful solution. What happened to those worlds? Marcus asked. They are now part of our empire. There. People work for us. They are happier now that they have proper guidance. Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. You mean they're slaves? We prefer the term guided species, Velthara said. Her skin turned dark purple. We bring order to chaos. We give purpose to primitive species. And if we refuse? Velthara's skin flashed bright yellow. Then we will demonstrate why resistance is futile. The alien turned to the large window and pointed at the fleet. Watch, Dr. Webb. Learn what happens to those who defy the Zephyrian Empire. One of the alien ships broke away from the main fleet. It was smaller than the others, but still twice the size of Earth's biggest cruiser. The ship moved toward the asteroid belt, where Earth had several mining stations. Mining Station Alpha, Marcus whispered. There are 300 people there. Were. Velthara corrected. The alien ship fired a beam of brilliant blue light. The mining station simply vanished, turned to dust in an instant. Marcus felt sick watching it happen. Your weapons cannot harm our ships, Velthara continued. Our shields can stop anything you might fire at us. This demonstration was with one small ship using minimal power. Imagine what our full fleet could do to your cities. Marcus stared out at the alien fleet. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a city. Together, they could turn Earth's surface into a wasteland in minutes. How long do we have to decide? Marcus asked. Your hour is almost over. Admiral Kethfer grows impatient. Marcus thought about the billions of people on Earth, children playing in parks, families having dinner, scientists working in labs, all of them depending on him to find a way to save them. I need to contact my government, Marcus said. You have 15 minutes, Velthara replied. Then we expect your answer. The aliens left the conference room, returning to their shuttle. Marcus immediately called the president on a secure line. Sir, it's hopeless, Marcus reported. They just destroyed Mining Station Alpha with one shot. Their technology is beyond anything we have. What do they want? The president asked. Complete surrender. They want to add Earth to their empire, like the other 17 worlds they've conquered. There was a long pause. Marcus could hear voices arguing in the background. Dr. Webb, the president said finally, tell them we surrender. Marcus felt his heart break. Sir, we have no choice. We can't fight them. At least if we surrender, some people will survive. Marcus ended the call and stared out at the alien fleet. In a few minutes, he would have to tell them that humanity was giving up. Earth would become the 18th world to fall to the Zephyrian Empire. But as he watched, Marcus noticed something strange. Far beyond the alien fleet, space itself seemed to shimmer. It was probably just his imagination, but for a moment, it looked like something was moving out there in the darkness. Commander Helen Price stood beside him at the window. Doctor, there's something you should know, she said quietly. Things are not always what they seem. Before Marcus could ask what she meant, the alien shuttle returned. It was time to surrender Earth to the Zephyrian Empire. But somewhere in the back of his mind, Marcus wondered what Helen Price had meant, and he kept thinking about that strange shimmer in the darkness of space. Dr. Marcus Webb stood before Commander Velthara with heavy shoulders. The alien's crystal skin shifted to a pleased green color as she waited for Earth's surrender. Behind her, the massive Zephyrian fleet moved closer to the planet, their weapons ready to destroy any resistance. Commander Velthara, Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. Earth surrenders to the Zephyrian Empire. The alien's skin flashed bright gold. A wise decision, Dr. Webb. Your species will benefit from our guidance. Admiral Kethfer will be pleased. But even as Marcus spoke the words of surrender, something strange was happening deep beneath. The Earth's surface. In hidden bunkers that had been built decades ago, old machines hummed to life. Lights flickered on in rooms that most people didn't know existed. Colonel Amy Rodriguez stood in one of those secret rooms, 3 miles beneath the Colorado mountains. The walls were covered with screens showing data that would have confused most people, but Amy understood what she was seeing. She had been waiting for this day for 20 years. "Control, this is Deep Site 7. Amy spoke into her headset. "All systems are green." "Repeat, all systems are green." Similar reports came from hidden facilities around the world. Deep Site 3, under the Sahara Desert. Deep Site 12, beneath the Pacific Ocean. Deep Site 19, in the frozen wastes of Antarctica. All of them were waking up after sleeping. For generations. "Colonel Rodriguez," came a voice from her headset. "This is Command. Begin Phase 2. Amy's fingers moved across her control panel. On her main screen, she could see the Zephyrian fleet approaching Earth. The aliens had no idea what was about to happen. "Phase 2 initiated," Amy confirmed. "All stations report ready?" Meanwhile, aboard the UES Defiant, Admiral Lisa Brooks received orders that confused her crew. Instead of preparing for a hopeless last stand, they were told to move their ships into specific positions around Earth. The positions made no tactical sense. "Admiral," said Captain Tony Clark over the communication system from his ship, "the Intrepid, these orders don't make sense. We're spreading our forces too thin." "Follow your orders, Captain," Lisa replied, though she didn't understand them either. "Command knows what they're doing." Captain Tony Clark studied his navigation charts. His ship was supposed to move to a position between Earth and Mars, far from the main battle. It felt like running away from the fight. "Sir," said his weapons officer, Lieutenant Gary Lewis, "if we move to that position, we won't be able to help defend Earth." Tony looked at the young officer. Gary was fresh out of the academy, eager to prove himself in battle. Tony had been fighting in space for 15 years, but he had never received orders like these. "Sometimes, Lieutenant, we have to trust that our leaders know things we don't," Tony said. "Take us to the coordinates." The Intrepid moved away from Earth's defense fleet, followed by 5 other ships. To the Zephyrians watching from their approaching fleet, it looked like the humans were retreating before the battle even began. Admiral Kethver stood on his command bridge and watched the human ships scatter. His skin showed the deep blue of satisfaction. These humans were even more cowardly than he had expected. "Admiral," said his tactical officer, "the human ships are moving away from their planet. They're not even trying to fight." "Of course not," Kethver replied. "They know they cannot win. Begin the final approach. We will be in orbit around their world within the hour." But the Zephyrian admiral had made a mistake. His scouts had told him about Earth's obvious defenses, but they had missed the hidden ones. As his fleet moved closer to the planet, sensors in the deep ocean began tracking their approach. "Commander, Helen Price sat in a control room that didn't appear on any public maps. The room was built into the ocean floor, 5 miles down in the Mariana Trench. She had been stationed here for 10 years, waiting for this moment. "Contact bearing 270, reported her sensor operator. "Multiple targets approaching from the outer system." Helen looked at her displays. The Zephyrian fleet was huge, but they were flying in tight formations. That would make them easier targets when the time came. "Are the packages ready?" Helen asked. "All packages are in position and ready to deploy, ma'am." Helen smiled. The packages had been placed years ago, disguised as space debris and asteroid fragments. The aliens had no idea they were flying into a trap. "Wait for the signal," Helen ordered. "When it comes, we move fast." Back on Gateway 1, Marcus Webb watched the alien fleet approach Earth. The ships were beautiful and terrible, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Soon they would be in orbit around his home planet, and humanity would become slaves to an alien empire. "Dr. Webb," Commander Valthara said, Your planet's surrender will be broadcast to all worlds in this sector. Other species will learn that resistance to the Zephyrian Empire is pointless. Marcus nodded sadly. But as he watched the alien ships, he noticed something strange. Space itself seemed to be moving behind the fleet. It was subtle, like heat waves rising from hot pavement, but something was definitely there. Commander Velthara, Marcus said, how many ships do you have in your fleet? The alien's skin shifted to a proud purple. 437. Vessels, Dr. Webb. More than enough to control any primitive world. And how many worlds has your empire conquered? 17 before yours. Soon to be 18. Marcus did quick math in his head. If the Zephyrians had conquered 17 worlds with fleets this size, they must have thousands of ships spread across the galaxy. But something bothered him about their tactics. Why do you always demand surrender before attacking? Marcus asked. Veltharos. Skin flashed with annoyance. Because conquest without battle is more efficient. Why waste time and resources fighting when intimidation works just as well? That was it, Marcus realized. The Zephyrians were used to easy victories. They had never faced real resistance because they had never encountered a species that could fight back effectively. Their confidence was based on fighting weak opponents. What happens if a world refuses to surrender? Marcus asked. Then we destroy their cities until they change their minds. It has never taken more than a few demonstrations. Marcus felt a chill. The aliens weren't just conquerors, they were bullies. They picked on weaker species because they had never met anyone who could stand up to them. But what would happen if they encountered a species that was stronger than they expected? Admiral Kethfor to all ships, came a voice over the alien communication system. Begin final approach to the human world. Maintain formation Beta 7. Weapons to standby. The Zephyrian fleet moved into its attack formation. The largest ships formed the center, with smaller vessels spread out in a wide net around them. It was a formation designed to intimidate and control, not to fight a real battle. Captain Jake Morrison watched from Sentinel-7 as the alien fleet approached. His orbital station was armed with missiles and laser cannons, but they would be useless against the alien shields. Still, he and his crew were ready to fight. "Sir," said Lieutenant Sam Carter, "we're receiving a coded transmission from command." Jake read the message on his screen. It was short and simple. Hold position. Wait for the signal. Trust the plan. What signal? Sam asked. Jake looked out at the alien fleet. I don't know, Lieutenant. But I guess we're about to find out. The Zephyrian ships were now close enough to Earth that they could be seen with the naked eye from the planet's surface. People in cities around the world looked up at the sky and saw the alien vessels like new stars in the heavens. But in the hidden facilities deep beneath the Earth's surface, operators like Colonel Amy Rodriguez were making final preparations. Ancient weapon systems that had been built in secret were powering up. And in the dark spaces between the planets, something that had been waiting for decades was finally ready to move. Admiral Kethfor stood on his bridge and looked down at the blue world below. Soon it would be his. Soon the humans would be working for the Zephyrian Empire, just like all the other conquered species. He had no idea that he was about to discover. What happened when an empire built on bullying weaker species finally encountered one that could fight back. Admiral Kethfor stood on his command bridge, watching Earth grow larger on his screens. The blue planet looked peaceful and helpless, just like all the other worlds his empire had conquered. His skin glowed with the golden color of victory. All ships, prepare for orbital insertion, Kethfor commanded. Deploy occupation forces to the major population centers. Begin downloading their communication networks. The Zephyrian fleet moved into position around Earth. 437 ships arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the planet. Their weapons were aimed at the surface, ready to destroy any city that might resist. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "we are detecting some unusual energy readings from the planet's surface." Kethver's skin shifted to a mild orange of curiosity. "What kind of energy readings?" "Unknown, sir. They appear to be coming from deep underground. Our sensors cannot penetrate whatever is blocking them." The Admiral dismissed the report with a wave of his hand. "Probably their primitive power systems. Ignore it." But 3 miles beneath the Colorado mountains, Colonel Amy Rodriguez was watching her control screens with growing excitement. The alien fleet was exactly where her computers had predicted it would be. "Control, this is Deep Sight 7. Amy spoke into her headset. "Enemy fleet is in position. All packages are locked onto their targets." "Deep Sight 7, this is Command," came the reply. "You are cleared for Phase 3. Repeat, you are cleared for Phase 3. Amy's finger hovered over a red button on her control panel. She had been training for this moment for 20 years, but her hand still shook slightly. "All stations, this is Deep Sight 7. Execute Phase 3 on my mark." Amy took a deep breath. 3.2.1. mark. Amy pressed the button dot across the solar system. Pieces of space debris that had been floating harmlessly for decades suddenly came to life. What the Zephyrians had dismissed as asteroids and junk began to move with purpose. Hidden engines ignited, and camouflaged weapon systems powered up. The packages that Commander Helen Price had mentioned were not bombs or missiles. They were something much more dangerous. They were beacons. Captain Tony Clark stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, still confused about why his ship had been sent so far from Earth. But as he watched his sensors, everything suddenly made sense. "Sir," gasped his navigation officer, "something's happening. Space is ... changing." Tony looked at his screens and felt his heart stop. The area around his ship was filling with massive energy signatures, but there was nothing there. His eyes saw empty space, but his instruments detected objects the size of small moons. "Stealth fields," Tony whispered. "They're dropping their stealth fields." The first dreadnought appeared like a mountain materializing out of thin air. It was enormous, over 10 miles long and 3 miles wide. Its hull was dark gray metal, covered with weapons that looked like they could crack planets in half. Then another appeared, and another, and another. Within minutes, 50 massive ships surrounded the Intrepid. Each one was larger than the entire Zephyrian fleet combined. They had been hiding in space for decades, waiting for this moment. "This is Admiral Patricia Hayes aboard the Dreadnought Titan's Hammer," came a voice over Tony's communication system. "Captain Clark, you and your ships are now under my protection. Stay in position and watch the show." Tony stared at the massive ship floating beside his tiny cruiser. Admiral Hayes. He had heard that name before, but she was supposed to be dead. The record said she had died in a shuttle accident 15 years ago. "Admiral Hayes," Tony said over the radio, "we thought you were dead. That was the plan, Captain. For 15 years, I've been commanding humanity's real defense fleet. Today, we find out if all that preparation was worth it." On his command? Bridge, Admiral Kethver was studying reports from his scouts when every alarm on his ship began screaming at once. "Admiral," his tactical officer shouted, "we have massive contacts appearing throughout the system. They're huge, sir. Each one is larger than our entire fleet." Kethver's skin turned white with shock. "That's impossible." Our scouts surveyed this system thoroughly. There's nothing here but the primitive human ships. "Sir, the contacts are moving toward us. They're enormous." The main screen on Kethver's bridge flickered and changed. Instead of showing the peaceful blue planet below, it now displayed a sight that made his blood freeze. Dozens of Gigantic ships were emerging from stealth fields all around his fleet. They were shaped like massive hammers, with armor that looked thick enough to stop a supernova. "Where did they come from?" Kethver demanded. "Unknown, sir. They must have been hiding using some kind of cloaking technology we've never seen before." Kethver's skin flashed through a dozen colors as panic set in. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen ships this large. The biggest Zephyrian dreadnought was less than 3 miles long. These human ships were 4 times that size. "Signal the fleet," Kethvar ordered. "All ships, prepare for immediate retreat." But it was too late. The human dreadnoughts had already moved into position around the Zephyrian fleet. They formed a cage of metal and weapons that no ship could escape. Dr. Marcus Webb was still on Gateway 1 when the dreadnoughts appeared. He watched through the station's main window as the massive ships materialized around the alien fleet. Commander Velthara stood beside him, her crystal skin cycling through every color he had ever seen. "What are those ships?" Velthara whispered. Marcus smiled for the first time in hours. "Those are humanity's real defense fleet. Did you really think we would leave our home planet undefended? But our scouts, they said you were primitive. They said you had no advanced technology. Your scouts saw exactly what we wanted them to see," Marcus explained. "We've been preparing for visitors like you for a very long time." On the Dreadnought Titan's hammer, Admiral Patricia Hayes stood in a command center that was larger than most buildings. Around her, hundreds of officers worked at control stations managing weapon systems that could reshape entire solar systems. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, "all dreadnoughts are in position. The alien fleet is completely surrounded." Patricia looked at the display, showing the Zephyrian ships. They were trapped like insects in a web, with no way to escape. But she took no pleasure in their fear. She was a professional, and this was her job. "Open a channel to the alien fleet," Patricia ordered. On Admiral Kethvar's bridge, a new voice filled the air. It was calm and professional, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. "This is Admiral Patricia Hayes of the Earth Defense Force. You are surrounded and outgunned. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." Kethvar's skin turned. The deep red of rage. "You dare threaten the Zephyrian Empire? We have conquered 17 worlds. We will not be intimidated by primitives." "Admiral Kethvar," Patricia's voice replied, "you've been conquering worlds that couldn't fight back. Today you met one that can. I'm giving you one chance to surrender peacefully." "Never!" Kethvar screamed. "All ships, open fire on the nearest human vessel. Show them the power of the Zephyrian Empire." The alien fleet opened fire with everything they had. Beams of blue energy and streams of plasma shot out from 400 ships, all aimed at the closest dreadnought. The human ship didn't even bother to dodge. The alien weapons struck its hull and simply disappeared, absorbed by shields that were stronger than anything the Zephyrians had ever encountered. "Our turn," Admiral Hayes said quietly. Captain Ben Sullivan commanded the Dreadnought Titan's hammers. Main weapon. It was called a gravitational manipulator, and it could do things that seemed impossible. When Ben activated it, space itself bent around the alien fleet. The Zephyrian ships found themselves being crushed by their own gravity. Their shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against forces that twisted the very fabric of space and time. "Admiral," Ben reported to Patricia, 37 enemy ships disabled. They're asking for mercy. "Tell them to surrender and we'll stop," Patricia replied. "Otherwise, we'll continue until their entire fleet is scrap metal." Admiral Kethvar watched his mighty fleet being destroyed by weapons he couldn't understand. Ships that had conquered worlds were being crushed like tin cans. His empire's greatest military force was helpless against these human monsters. "All ships, cease fire," Kethvar commanded. "Signal surrender to the human fleet." The battle was over in less than 10 minutes. The Zephyrian Empire's greatest fleet had been defeated by ships they never saw coming. As Admiral Hayes accepted their surrender, she opened a channel to every Zephyrian ship in the fleet. "Let me explain something to you," Patricia said. "Earth has been monitoring your empire for 50 years. We knew you were coming long before you knew we existed. We've been preparing for this day since before some of you were born." She paused, letting that sink in. "You made one mistake, Admiral Kethvar. You assumed we were primitive because we wanted you to think that. But humans have been hiding their true capabilities for generations, waiting for the day when someone would threaten our world. The Dreadnought fleet held the alien ships in place while Admiral Hayes delivered her final message. Today, you learned what happens when an empire built on bullying weaker species finally meets one that can fight back. Take that lesson home with you." Admiral Kethvar sat in his damaged command chair, staring at the human dreadnoughts that surrounded his fleet. His crystal skin had turned a dull gray color of defeat. Around him, his officers worked quietly to repair their ship's systems. The proud Zephyrian fleet was now helpless, held prisoner by an enemy they had thought was primitive. "Admiral," his communication officer said softly, "the humans are requesting to board our ship." Kethvar closed his eyes. In all his years of conquest, he had never been on the losing side of a battle. The Zephyrian Empire had seemed unstoppable, but these humans had destroyed his fleet in minutes. "Let them come," Kethvar said. "We have no choice." On the Dreadnought Titan's hammer, Admiral Patricia Hayes prepared to visit the alien flagship. She wore her dress uniform, with medals that told the story of a long military career. But most people thought she had died 15 years ago in a shuttle accident. That had been part of the deception. "Admiral," said Captain Ben Sullivan, "are you sure you want to go over there personally?" Patricia checked her sidearm and put on her cap. "The aliens need to understand who they're dealing with, Ben. Sometimes you have to look your enemy in the eye." The shuttle ride to the Zephyrian flagship was short. Patricia looked out the window at the alien ship as they approached. It was beautiful in its own way, with smooth curves and gleaming metal. But it was also damaged, with scorch marks where the human weapons had overwhelmed its shields. Admiral Kethvar met Patricia in his ship's main conference room. Up close, the alien was even more impressive than she had expected. He was tall and graceful, with skin that shifted colors like living crystal. But his colors were muted now, showing defeat and confusion. "Admiral Hayes," Kethvar said in English, "I must ask, how did you know we were coming?" Patricia sat down across from him at the conference table. "We've been watching your empire for 50 years, Admiral. Every world you conquered, every ship you built. We knew eventually you would find Earth. But our scouts reported that your species was primitive. No advanced weapons, no deep space capability. Your scouts saw exactly what we wanted them to see," Patricia explained. "We've been very careful to appear weak while we prepared our real defenses." Kethvar's skin flashed with a brief orange of understanding. "The crashed ships. 50 years. Go. Some of our scout vessels went missing in this sector." Patricia nodded. "We found them. We studied your technology and learned how to build better versions. Your own ships taught us how to defeat you." The alien admiral looked shocked. "You reverse-engineered our technology? Humans are very good at taking things apart and putting them back together," Patricia said. "We learned about your weapons, your shields, your sensors. Then we built ships that could beat all of them." Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Marcus Webb was giving a very different speech to the world's leaders. The president and his advisors sat around the same conference table where they had planned humanity's surrender just hours before. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus said, I'm pleased to report that the alien threat has been neutralized. The Zephyrian fleet has surrendered to our forces." The president looked confused. "Our forces?" "Dr. Webb, what forces?" "Our entire fleet is 12 cruisers and some patrol boats." Marcus smiled. "Sir, that's our public fleet. Our real fleet has been hidden for decades. The Dreadnoughts have been protecting Earth since before most of us were born." "The Dreadnoughts?" asked Secretary of State Karen Murphy. "I've never heard of any Dreadnoughts." "Because they were classified above your security level," Marcus explained. "Only a few people in each government knew about them. We've been preparing for this day for 50 years. General Harrison leaned forward. "How many ships are we talking?" "About 50 Dreadnoughts, each one larger and more powerful than the entire alien fleet, plus supporting vessels, hidden bases, and weapon systems that most people don't know exist." The room fell silent as the leaders tried to understand what they were hearing. "You mean," the president said slowly, "we were never really in danger?" "Oh, we were in danger," Marcus replied. "If the Zephyrians had been smarter, they might have discovered our preparations. But they expected easy victory, so they didn't. Look very hard." Back on the alien flagship, Admiral Kethvar was learning more uncomfortable truths about human capabilities. "Your ships," he said to Patricia, "they use gravitational weapons. We have never seen such technology." "We learned the basics from your crashed scouts," Patricia explained, "but we improved on the design. Human engineers are very creative when they're motivated." "And the stealth fields that hid your fleet?" "Again, based on your technology, but much better. We've had 50 years to perfect them." Kethvar's skin turned a deep blue of sadness. "My empire will not understand this defeat. We have never lost a battle before." Patricia studied the alien commander. Despite everything, she felt some sympathy for him. He was a professional soldier doing his job, just like she was. "Admiral Kethvar," Patricia said, "I'm going to make you an offer. Your empire can continue to exist, but it will change how it operates." "What do you mean?" "No more conquering primitive worlds. No more slavery disguised as guidance. If your empire wants to expand, you'll do it through trade and diplomacy, not force." Kethvar's skin flashed with anger. "You cannot dictate terms to the Zephyrian Empire. We rule over dozens of star systems." "Admiral," Patricia said calmly, "look around you. Your fleet is destroyed. Your ships are helpless. I'm offering you a chance to go home and rebuild your empire the right way." "And if we refuse?" Patricia's expression hardened. "Then we'll visit your home worlds with our Dreadnoughts. I think you've seen what those ships can do." The alien admiral was quiet for a long moment. His skin cycled through several colors as he thought. "What about the worlds we have already conquered?" he asked. "They will be freed, all of them. Your empire will withdraw and allow those species to govern themselves." "The Council of Admirals will never agree to this." Patricia stood up. "Then, maybe it's time for new leadership in your empire. You have 24 hours to contact your government and explain the situation. After that, we start visiting your worlds." Captain Tony Clark watched from the bridge of the Intrepid as the Zephyrian fleet prepared to leave. The alien ships moved slowly, many of them damaged from the brief battle. They formed a ragged line as they headed toward the edge of the solar system. "Sir," said Lieutenant Gary Lewis, "it's hard to believe it's over." Tony nodded. "It's hard to believe it ever started. This morning we thought we were helpless against an alien invasion. Now we find out we've had the most powerful fleet in the galaxy all along." "Why keep it secret?" Gary asked. "Because secrets are powerful weapons," Tony explained. "The aliens attacked us because they thought we were weak. If they had known the truth, they might never have come at all." On Gateway 1, Dr. Marcus Webb stood with Commander Velthara as they watched the Zephyrian fleet depart. The alien diplomat's skin showed the purple colors of deep thought. "Dr. Webb," she said, "your species is not what we expected." "What did you expect?" Marcus asked. "A young race, primitive and easy to control. Instead, we found an ancient. Deception and weapons beyond our understanding." Marcus looked out at the human dreadnoughts, which were already beginning to fade back into their stealth fields. Soon they would be invisible again, hidden until the next threat appeared. "Commander Valfara," Marcus said, "humans have been planning for this meeting for a very long time. We knew that someday we would encounter other intelligent species. We just wanted to make sure we were ready. And the 17 worlds my empire conquered, they'll be free within a year. We'll make sure of that." Valfara's skin shifted to a resigned gray. "The Zephyrian Empire will never be the same." "Maybe that's a good thing," Marcus replied. "Maybe it's time for your people to learn a different way of living with other species." As the last Zephyrian ship disappeared into hyperspace, Admiral Patricia Hayes broadcast a message across known space from the bridge of the Titan's hammer. "This is Admiral Patricia Hayes of the Earth Defense Force," she said. "Today the Zephyrian Empire attempted to conquer our world. They have been defeated and sent home. Let this be a message to any species considering hostile action against Earth or our allies. We welcome peaceful contact and trade, but any who come with conquest in mind will face the full power of humanity's defenses." The message was transmitted on every frequency, in every known language. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations received humanity's first official communication with the wider universe. Earth was no longer hiding. The secret was out. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy not as a primitive species begging for mercy, but as a power to be respected and feared. In the hidden facilities beneath Earth's surface, operators like Colonel Amy Rodriguez began the process of returning to standby mode. The dreadnoughts faded back into their stealth fields. The packages returned to their disguised positions as space debris, but they would be ready. They would always be ready, because humanity had learned the most important lesson of all: the best defense is the one your enemy never sees coming.